Is my wife faking her amnesia? 30 unexplained days of sinister secrets revealed. Rain pounded against the windows like an angry beast as Mike stumbled through the front door. His heart sank. There lay Rachel, his wife, frail and disoriented on the couch, her eyes wide and unseeing. He hadn't expected to find her this way after a grueling double shift at the construction site. What happened, he thought, but there was no warmth in her gaze, only a blankness that chilled him to the core. "Where's Emma?" she murmured, as if speaking to a ghost. Mike's insides constricted. They had been a happy family, now a nightmare lingered. Days turned into weeks, and the once bustling neighborhood transformed. Whispers slithered through the air like smoke. Neighbors traded nervous glances when Mike walked by, their hushed tones heavy with secrets he didn't understand. It crawled under his skin and set his teeth on edge. He tried to stay strong for Rachel, shoehorning himself into the comforting husband role he once owned with pride. Yet every moment of her fractured memory felt like a rotten piece of fruit. It radiated a smell of something sinister festering beneath the surface. The days blurred together as Rachel's behavior grew more erratic. She'd murmur in shadows, clutching at invisible threads of memory, words that seemed foreign yet strangely familiar. One night, her voice floated through the dark like a warning. "It's safer this way, Mike." But safer from what? Her growing fixation with Mr. Jenkins, their reclusive neighbor with a shadowy past, grinded against his nerves. Every knock on the door brought new dread, the local police appearing at least twice a week. Their tight-lipped smiles and sidelong glances seemed less like concern and more like a spectacle. "Did you know about her past?" one officer mused. Questions nagged at Mike. What, exactly, was hidden back there? He could feel panic bubbling. Every tiny detail lost in the fog of Rachel's amnesia was a chink exposing the deepening darkness in their lives. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One bleak evening, Mike found himself sifting through ancient family photographs that lay like forgotten secrets in a dusty box. Faces stared back, frozen in moments of joy. But Rachel's smile looked off, the brightness somehow smothered, the joy just a veneer. He felt his heart stutter like an old engine. Had he been blind? Shadows danced in his mind, tightening their grip as he wrestled with despair. Then he heard it. The fragmented conversation between Rachel and Mr. Jenkins filtered through the open window. Shift in keeping her safe. A lump formed in Mike's throat, cold as ice. Was Rachel in danger, or was she hiding something darker, a truth that could shatter them all? Every instinct screamed for him to intervene, as an icy grip of fear wrapped around him. Standing there, just outside the light, he balanced on the precipice of revelation. Would the truth open doors to freedom? Or would it entangle him deeper in a web of unimaginable horror? The next day broke heavy and gray, the sky mirroring the weight pressing down on Mike's chest. He rubbed his eyes, chasing away the remnants of sleep mixed with dread. Rachel was still on the couch, draped under a blanket, fast asleep but mumbling in her dreams. The phrases spilled from her lips like poison, whispering hidden truths and shadows into the air. He fought the urge to wake her, to ask what she meant. Instead, he pulled out his phone, scrolling through web pages filled with conjecture about amnesia. Most articles were dry, clinical. But one stood out, a forum thread discussing the eeriest cases of fugue states. The chilling tales pinned his heart to his throat. Strange behavior was common. Often, the person had suffered trauma, hidden truths clawing their way back to the surface. What had happened to Rachel while she was gone? He decided to pay Mr. Jenkins an unwelcome visit. Unease churned in his gut. As he approached the neighbor's front porch, his hand trembled over the brass knocker. The old man had a reputation for being difficult, gruff, a hermit trapped in layers of secrets. Still, if he held any pieces of this disjointed puzzle, Mike had to know. The door creaked open, revealing Jenkins' weary face, etched with lines that told stories of regret and sorrow. "What do you want?" the man snapped, eyes narrowing like slits. "Rachel, she's been acting strange. I heard her talking to you last night." The neighbor's expression shifted, something flickered in his gaze. "What's it to you?" Mike clenched his fists. "I need to know what you told her." Jenkins hesitated, his breath hitching, as if weighing the gravity of what he could begin to unravel. "Sometimes it's better not to dig too deep, lad. You don't know what you're asking for. Tell me," Mike demanded, raw desperation creeping into his voice. "I can't just sit here while she slips further away. She's not the same woman I married." Jenkins studied him for a long moment, then sighed deeply. "Fine. But get it through your head what you unearth may bring things to light that should stay buried. People get hurt that way." After a brief pause, he pulled Mike into his sparsely decorated living room. Just as his mind filled with expectations, a shout echoed from outside. Mike's heart dropped to his stomach. It came from their home. Panic rattled through him. He bolted toward the door, Jenkins trailing behind. As they stepped onto the front porch, Mike saw Rachel standing in the middle of their front yard, breathless, her hair whipping wildly in the cold wind. Gone was the frail figure he'd seen before. "Emma!" she shouted, frantic, her eyes darting around like a trapped animal. "Rachel!" Michael's voice cracked. "What are you doing?" But she was lost in her own world now, one he couldn't fathom. The shadows that had once draped her seemed to surround her, beckoning with dark promises. Jenkins whispered next to Mike, his voice low. "You need to understand, some memories are better left untouched." But the storm inside Mike raged on. "Where is our daughter?" he whispered, realizing new fragments of fear and desperation clung to him like a second skin. As Rachel spun around, nightmarish recognition lit her eyes, followed by sheer terror. A scream carved itself from her throat like a warning. The darkness, it seemed, had truly come to claim them, and whatever secrets lingered could not be escaped. What else had been hidden from him? And was the truth as dangerous as the lies? Mike's heart raced as he stood frozen on the porch, watching Rachel's wild eyes dart around, searching for something or someone invisible to him. The world around them felt muted, the gray sky pressing down like a threat. The scream that had erupted from Rachel was still echoing in his ears, a chilling note that turned his stomach. "Rachel, please!" he shouted again, but his voice barely cut through the wind. Jenkins' face was pale, his eyes reflecting a knowing fear, as if he had seen this moment before. "Emma," Rachel gasped, crumbling into a sob. "Where is she? I can't find her. I need to save her." The frantic rhythm of her words echoed in Mike's mind, growing louder as panic clutched at him. What had happened during those 30 days? What was Emma? "Rachel!" He rushed forward, but as he reached her, the air grew heavy, thickening like smoke. Rachel's hand shot out, blocking him. Her eyes were wild, yet behind the terror, a flicker of something ancient and dark rested beneath. "You can't be here. It's not safe." "Not safe? What do you mean?" "We have to stick together." Jenkins stepped forward, a grave look on his face. "You don't understand. The more you fight it, the worse it gets." "I don't want to hear this," Mike shouted back. He was losing her, slipping into a chasm of despair. He stepped closer, ignoring Jenkins' warning. "Rachel, listen to me. We're going to find Emma. I promise. Just help me understand. What happened to you?" Her eyes flickered with recognition, then hopelessness. "It's too late for that, Mike. You don't know what's out there." She took a step back, plucking at the edges of the calm facade she had worn for so long. "You should have left it buried like I tried to." "What does that mean?" But her breaths were coming in ragged gasps now, her words tumbling out. "I shouldn't have talked to him. I shouldn't have gone back there." "Talked to who? What are you so afraid of?" Before she could respond, the wind picked up, swirling in a chaotic frenzy, wrapping tendrils of mist around their feet. It felt almost alive, pulsating with a rhythm, as if beckoning them deeper into the unknown. Rachel! His own desperation became a plea, the weight of everything stacking upon him like bricks. We can face this together. No, she shrieked, backing away. You don't understand, I can't let it happen again. And then, she spun around as if something unseen was tugging on her soul, her voice dropping to a frantic whisper. Emma is the key. Emma is the danger. Just then, a shadow flitted through the trees behind her. Mike turned, the hairs on the back of his neck standing up. Did he see it? Or was it just his imagination igniting under the pressure of fear? The truth of the matter was no longer clear. Everything felt fractured. Jenkins stood at his side, hardly able to breathe. We don't know what lies in that darkness, lad. You mustn't let her go. Rachel, wait. But she was already moving, drawn forward by an unseen pull, her feet gliding toward the forest's edge where the shadows thickened, and a bitter chill sunk into her bones. Stop. Mike's voice was raw with panic. He could feel Jenkins' hand gripping his arm, tight. We can't lose her. Not now. The ominous rustling from the trees beckoned, enticing them to chase shadows that stretched far beyond their reach. Rachel paused, her back still turned, yet her shoulders shook with fear. Sometimes people don't come back the same. And just like that, she stepped into the shadows, disappearing into the dark embrace of the forest, leaving Mike suspended between hope and despair. The echo of her voice blurred with the roar of the wind. What lay beyond those trees? The truth awaited, shrouded in danger, and Mike couldn't help but wonder, was this where everything began or where it would end? He had to follow. What choice did he have? But behind him, Jenkins let out a low growl. You don't want to go there, boy, it'll consume you. As Mike's feet pushed him forward, he felt the darkness whispering behind him, taunting him, and he finally asked himself if he ventured out, would he ever find his way back? The forest loomed large, swallowing the last remnants of Rachel's form. Mike's heart pounded, a relentless drumbeat fueling his desperate chase into the unknown. He could feel the cold tendrils of fear winding around him, tightening with every step he took. Shadows whispered against the trees, as if the entire forest held its breath in anticipation of what was to come. Rachel! He called again, his voice cracking under the weight of terror. Each syllable felt like a plea to the darkness, and his chest tightened with dread that silence would be his only answer. Crisp leaves crunched beneath his feet, echoing in the stillness, each noise pulling him deeper. He blinked against the encroaching gloom, searching for any sign of her, but the shadows danced wickedly, mocking his frantic efforts. Was this the darkness leaving him behind? Or was it Rachel leading him deeper into a trap? Suddenly, a glimmer caught his eye, a flash of pale skin, a movement that sent his heart racing anew. He sprinted, pushing past the tightening branches, shards of twigs catching at his clothes. Rachel! He called again, desperation clawing at his throat. Then, without warning, the world around him shifted. The trees groaned as something unseen disturbed the air, and a bitter chill seeped into Mike's bones. It was as if the forest itself was alive, aware of his presence. It didn't want him here. Ahead, he spotted her again, this time standing still, her silhouette framed against a bizarre globe he couldn't quite comprehend. He slowed his steps, confusion cracking through his fear. Rachel? He whispered, dread pooling heavily in his stomach. Was she even there? Was this just another trick? The light flickered, revealing faces in the shadows of the trees, faces he recognized. Friends, family, all twisted in silent screams. Mike's breath caught in his throat. What is this? He gasped. Was she trapped in a nightmare he couldn't escape? A low growl echoed from behind, resonating through the clearing with a weight that pressed on his chest. Jenkins emerged, tension coiling around him like a snake. We must leave. He barked, eyes wide with fear. This isn't for mortals. But the vision before Mike demanded his attention. Rachel turned, her face pale, eyes wide as if she were trapped behind glass, unable to reach him. Help me! She begged, a tremor of hope threading through her voice. I don't know what's happening. Fury and fear mixed in Mike's veins, twisting his insides. "I'm coming, just hold on." He lunged forward, his world narrowing down to her. As he stepped forward, the light faltered, engulfing Rachel in shadows once more. Her panic-stricken face faded, replaced by a scene drenched in darkness. A sense of foreboding dripped through the air. Mike's instincts screamed at him. Jenkins was right, the darkness writhed like a predator, hungry for their souls. "No! This ends now!" Mike shouted, but his own voice felt disembodied, echoing against the emptiness. The trees seemed to lean closer, closing in around him. Then, the growl erupted again, louder, more insistent this time. He turned to Jenkins, whose eyes mirrored the terror building within him. "We have to run." As they turned to flee, Mike felt something brush against his back, a cold whisper against his skin. A voice, a memory, echoing the name he feared. Emma. In that instant, a pulse of blinding light erupted from within the forest, illuminating everything for a split second before plunging them back into darkness, shadows wrestling with his mind. In that chaotic moment, Mike felt a rush of dread. What if he was too late? What if he was just another lost soul, unable to pull Rachel from the void? As the echo of the light faded, a realization struck him: nothing would be the same again. The ground shook beneath him, and Mike stumbled, looking back toward Jenkins, who was frozen in place, eyes wide with realization. Not her was all he could muster, as fear twisted into recognition. With a final glance towards the darkness where Rachel had vanished, Mike took a deep breath. He had to find her. But as he stepped forward, the woods roared to life, and shadows began to envelop him once more, dragging him down. In that moment, he had to make a choice. Find Rachel and risk it all, or get lost forever in the darkness that beckoned, whispering of desperation and deceit. Was fighting the darkness worth the cost? Mike's heart thundered in his chest as the shadows threatened to swallow him whole, leaving him to wonder: was the truth lurking just beyond, or was it buried even deeper? Mike's breath quickened as the shadows lunged forward, clawing at him with icy fingers. Just when he thought they had him, a surge of adrenaline propelled him forward. He pushed past Jenkins, who had stumbled back, still caught in the moment of horror. "We have to go!" Mike shouted, his voice sharper than the fear suffocating him. They darted deeper into the thicket, branches slashing at their faces and the ground trembling underfoot. The air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. It felt as if the forest itself was a creature, hunting them, stalking their every movement. "Rachel!" He called again, desperation lacing his voice as if hoping it could cut through the morass of shadows. The silence that followed was deafening, a haunting reminder of how alone he truly was. Should he be calling for her? Or might it only draw more of whatever hunted them closer? Suddenly, Jenkins stopped, panting heavily. "We need a plan. We can't just run blind." His eyes darted around, looking for an escape route. Shadows flickered at the corner of Mike's vision, twisting into grotesque shapes, threatening to swallow this brief moment of clarity into darkness once more. Plan? What plan? Mike shot back, his hands shaking, struggles against the terror warping his mind. "Rachel's in there. I can't just leave her." "Do you want to join her?" Jenkins barked, panic crackling in the air. "It's not safe here." Mike clenched his fists, fighting against the surge of helplessness. But as he looked back into the murky depths of the forest where shadows coiled and whispered, he realized Jenkins was right. There was something unnatural about the way the trees twisted, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands, waiting. "Fine," he rasped, voice barely a whisper. "What do we do?" Jenkins drew in a ragged breath, scanning their surroundings. "We find a place to hide, regroup, and then we figure out how to break whatever hold this place has on Rachel." As they turned to sprint deeper into the thicket, a horrible crack echoed through the silence. It froze them mid-step, eyes wide, breaths hitching. The sound was like a spine snapping, a bone breaking. Mike's pulse pounded louder in his ears, drowning out everything else. "What was that?" he hissed, dread curling in his stomach like a serpent. An answering growl rumbled from behind, low and menacing, vibrating through the ground. This was different from before. This was primal hungry. the darkness felt alive. "Run!" Jenkins shouted, and they took off together, stumbling through the underbrush. Twigs snapped underfoot, branches whipped at their faces like vengeful spirits. Mike's mind raced with every horrifying possibility. How many secrets did this forest hide? "Watch out!" Jenkins shouted as he yanked Mike to the side, narrowly avoiding a thick vine snaking down from the trees above. "It's like it's trying to trap us." More shadows swirled around them, twisting to form faces, appearances of people Mike recognized, their features stretched in agony. A haunting chorus moaned, drowning Mike in despair. Terror gripped him like a vice, he staggered, disoriented. "Focus!" Jenkins pulled Mike back to the present, fierce urgency propelling him forward. "We need to move before it's too late." But Mike couldn't shake the vision of Rachel, lost and helpless. "We can't leave her." Jenkins opened his mouth to argue, but the growl behind them grew louder, closer. They could feel the heat of its breath on their skin, the dark promise of destruction lingering just beyond the shadows. "Go!" Jenkins barked, urging Mike to move faster despite his own fear. They lunged through the darkness, dodging trees that felt like they were closing in. And just when they thought they'd escaped, a flash surged through the blackness, a blinding light punctuated by the piercing cries of lost souls begging for release. "Get down!" Jenkins yelled as Mike dove to the ground. The forest seemed to tremble, uprooting memories and nightmares. The air thickened with despair, and a horrific cacophony erupted around them. Breathless and trembling, Mike felt the weight of choice bearing down. They could keep running, deeper into danger, or face whatever monstrosity waited behind the veil of light. His heart raced as the shadows danced, laughing. Digging deep, Mike realized this was his moment, a heartbeat, a decision. Saving Rachel was about to cost him everything. "Do we confront the light?" Mike's voice was barely a whisper, eyes locked with Jenkins. But before they could decide, the forest erupted with a howling wind, pulling at them, urging them forward. Shadows leaped, spiraling around them, taunting their every fear. And then, Mike felt a sharp tug at his shirt, pulling him back toward the abyss. Was the darkness fighting to keep him? Or was it trying to show him the truth? In that lost moment, Mike held his breath, feeling the forest close in, whispering secrets he wasn't ready to hear. What was the light hiding, and was it a doorway or a trap? The blinding light enveloped them, an electric surge that crackled through the air, mingling with the shadows like an ominous dance. Mike raised his hand to shield his eyes, but the brightness seemed to sear right through him. Jenkins let out a sharp grunt as he was pulled back against the weight of the shadows, struggling against the unseen force tightening its grip. "Mike! Don't!" He yelled, but the tugging sensation intensified, a relentless current dragging Mike closer to the source of the light. It flickered ominously, revealing a path where the trees thinned, their trunks gnarled and twisted as if recoiling in fear. "Let go!" Mike shouted, wrenching himself away from the binding shadows. Each step felt like a battle, his heart hammering wildly as the forest roared, drowning out his thoughts. Would this light lead to Rachel? Or was it just the woods luring him further into its wicked grasp? He took a deep breath, ignoring the chilling presence at his back. The shadows shifted, almost playfully, forming faces that twisted in agony. They whispered secrets in tones low and sinister, promises of despair entwined with glimpses of salvation. "Mike!" Jenkins cried, his voice cracking. "We need to stick together." But Mike was already moving, the fear of losing Rachel igniting a desperate flame within him. "We'll meet back here. I have to see what's ahead." He dashed toward the light, feet pounding against the uneven ground. The shadows hissed, angry at his defiance. As he broke through the final barrier of trees, a cold wind surged against him, stinging his skin. His heart sank. He staggered, taking in the scene before him. A clearing opened up, bathed in pure white light that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. At its center lay a stone altar, covered in ancient symbols now almost glowing with life or death. Surrounding the altar were shadowy figures, flickering in and out of view like distorted reflections in a darkened mirror. They loomed, whispering, beckoning. "Rachel?" Mike called, voice shaking. "Is anyone there?" A figure materialized from the swirling mist. He recognized her silhouette first, the familiar outline of her frail frame a beacon amidst the despair before the blinding light swallowed everything else. He reached for her, but the other shadows hissed, recoiling as Jason approached the altar. A deep rumble emerged from the darkness, the sound of laughter a cacophony that chilled him to the bone. Suddenly, Jenkins burst into the clearing behind him, eyes wide with horror. "No! Don't get closer!" He stumbled forward, but the shadows coiled tighter around his legs, pulling him to the ground. "Jenkins!" Mike shouted, feeling desperation claw at his throat. He darted back, battling the encroaching dark, but the figures surged, a wave of agony crashing over him. The voice came again, resonant yet distant, echoing through the very bones of the ground. "What you seek is not what you think. Seek the truth in the light, or death will claim what you love." The air turned thick, suffocating. Mike's pulse raced as everything around him spun into chaos. The shadows reached for him, closing in. Each breath grew heavier, a weight of dread pressing down on his chest. "Mike, we need to leave. Now!" Jenkins' voice was strained, filled with raw panic. But Mike was entranced, caught in the grip of the moment, staring into the pulsating light that promised answers. Then, from behind the veil, a scream pierced the silence, a woman's scream, echoing through the clearing. Mike's heart dropped. It was Rachel. Something inside him snapped. He shot forward, intent on breaking through, intent on saving her from whatever trap the forest had laid. "Mike! Don't!" Jenkins' shout became a distant plea as Mike barreled into the light, rushing toward the screen, the edges of reality blurring around him. What awaited him on the other side? Was it salvation or the final deception of the woods? With everything pushing him on, he jumped headfirst into the blinding light and the world fell away. The light swallowed him whole, a sensation akin to floating in nothingness. Moments morphed and twisted into shapes, and he was unsure if time even existed anymore. His heart thundered in his chest, a frantic beat echoing through the vast emptiness. Then, just as suddenly, he was thrust from that void and into a shocking reality. The clearing expanded before him, different now. The altar sat like a throne of malevolence, but now it was smeared with something dark, a mixture of mud and blood, glistening like twisted diamonds in the glaring light. The shadows danced closer, forming grotesque shapes that clawed at the edges of his vision. "Rachel!" he shouted, needing her name to pierce through the confusion. The air felt charged, crackling with dark energy. He stumbled forward, heart racing, eyes darting wildly. He caught a glimpse of her, just a flash, standing at the edge of the altar. She looked changed. No longer the fragile hope he remembered, but something guarded, something he couldn't name. Mike, her voice was barely above a whisper, a breath of sound lost amidst the swirling shadows. "You shouldn't have come here, it's not safe." Every instinct screamed at him to approach her, to defy the menacing specters hovering close. But the shadows seemed to lurch forward, hungry and desperate. He hesitated, a swell of dread forming a knot in his stomach. "Stay back!" Jenkins roared from behind, his voice heavy with terror. He was fighting against the grip of shadows still wrapped around him, their tendrils tightening with every futile struggle. "Don't let them take you too." Mike's heart twisted at the sight of his friend, bound and helpless. But Rachel was calling him. A surge of emotion choked him. "I have to save you," he shouted, ignoring the shadows clawing nearer, the whispers growing louder, their words a dissonant melody, luring him into uncertainty. "Mike, listen to him." Rachel's eyes were wide, pleading. "If you come too close, they will claim you. They feed on fear." He shook his head, knowing he could not abandon her. The air grew heavy as if it were warning him, a deep chill spreading through his skin. The shadows whispered louder, forming a chorus of despair. "Join us, it's easier here, you belong, no." He roared back, thrusting his hands forward, willing the darkness to retreat. "Let her go." Suddenly, the shadows lunged, a torrent of darkness that crashed into him. He stumbled backward, but not before they enveloped Rachel. She was choking on her own breath, eyes wide and lost, mouth moving but no sound escaping. The agony on her face pierced him deeper than any dagger.
A voice echoed through the chaos, both familiar and foreign, weaving through his mind.
What is lost must be found in shadows, the truth awaits.
Rachel! He lunged forward, fueled by raw desperation, cutting through the darkness.
As his fingers grazed her arm, something cold wrapped around him, ice, searching for warmth. He pulled back with a gasp, panic coursing through his veins.
Mike, save yourself!
Her voice cracked, each word a fragile thread keeping her tethered to consciousness.
They won't stop.
In a moment of clarity laced with terror, he understood the shadows were not merely creatures of the dark but manifestations of his own fear, feeding on it, reveling in the chaos of emotions. It was the darkest reflection of himself, a nightmare given form. Not tonight, he whispered, a vow forged in the chaos.
I'll end this.
Racing toward the altar, he steeled himself, prepared to confront the shadows that made a feast out of his very soul. But as he took those steps, an unearthly sound filled the air, a cacophony of wailing that resonated through the clearing.
He paused. Had he truly summoned a challenge, or had he awakened something far worse?
As the shadows twisted and swirled, light and dark clashing in a dizzying spectacle, he knew he was standing at the precipice of unimaginable horror.
What lay ahead? The realization gripped him, the truth they all feared was yet to come.
And at that moment, a familiar figure broke through the darkness, eyes hollow and a smile that
sent shivers down his spine. Did you miss me?
It was Rachel, but not the woman he remembered.
What had she become? The whispers promised their final revelation. Who would survive the night? The ground beneath Mike's feet trembled, shaking the air thick with fear.
He choked on a scream as Rachel's form distorted. Her eyes, once filled with warmth, were now cold voids that seemed to draw him in.
You're too late, she uttered, her voice an echo that bounced around the trees like a ghost. I am not who you think I am.
He felt a chill creep down his spine, a biting cold that gnawed at his resolve. The shadows flickered, and for an instant, he saw faces in the dark hollow, twisted versions of people he once knew, their expressions contorted with sorrow and rage. They'd taken her, he thought desperately, trying to clutch at hope, trying to break through the fear that threatened to consume him.
Rachel, fight them!
He shouted, but the words fell flat against the surreal reality. The shadows curled around her like serpents, hissing promises that made his skin crawl.
Embrace the darkness, it's your only escape.
A distant memory flashed in Mike's mind, the sound of Rachel laughing, the way her hair caught the sunlight, the taste of pie she had baked just last week. Now that felt like it belonged to another lifetime, a happier existence that seemed impossibly far away.
Return what is lost.
A voice roared with authority, resonating deep within the earth. The ground shook violently, and Mike stumbled, watching the shadows quiver as if taking a breath. They recoiled, and for a brief, fleeting moment, he felt the spike of hope again.
But hope can be a cruel trickster.
It fluttered just out of reach as the shadows surged toward him, spewing whispers like sticky cobwebs.
You can't save her. She belongs to us now.
The voices dripped with malice, and he felt his knees weaken.
Jenkins!
Mike shouted, thinking of his friend's struggle against the shadows.
I'll save you both.
Triumphant rage ignited within him, overpowering the despair that threatened to swallow him whole.
He glanced at the altar, sensing its dark promise. It was the only place left to confront whatever lurked in the depths.
Gathering his courage, he bolted towards it.
Each step was thunderous, each breath shaky.
Shadows reached out, grazing his skin, leaving trails of ice that made him shudder.
He didn't stop.
The altar loomed closer, and with each pulse of darkness, he could feel an ancient power rippling beneath its surface, beckoning him to fulfill its dark purpose.
Mike, no!
Rachel screamed, and the sound shattered the air like glass. He saw her struggling against the darkness, her features flickering like a dying candle. What was left of her humanity fought but was being drowned out by the encroaching void. He almost turned, ready to reach for her, but this isn't about saving her, this was about saving himself. With frantic hands, he slammed against the altar, his palms feeling the cold, damp stone as if it were alive. The wailing crescendoed a mix of laughter and cries that threatened to break him.
Reveal to me the truth, he demanded, voice rising over the chaos.
The shadows recoiled violently, howling in protest. Then they swelled and pulsed, pouring forth memories he had buried deep. Images distorting into his mind, Rachel's smile fading, Jenkins haunted by what they dared not say. The truth coiled around him like chains, heavy and familiar. Darkness converged, wrapping around the altar, whispering promises of power and knowledge. You must choose: accept the truth, or lose everything. His breath hitched as he grasped the weight of the decision. Could he face what was hidden? Did he really want to uncover the sinister secrets lurking beneath their lives? The shadows began to seep into him, thoughts battling. Was he ready? No. He cried out, pulling free from their grasp. I want to be a pawn. I reject you. Echoes of laughter rippled through the night, sharp and cruel. You think you can resist us? You're only delaying the inevitable. With a stab of determination, he reached out, touching the stone of the altar. A light seared through the darkness, and visions burst from it, both ugly and beautiful. Memories turned nightmares. And as it swirled around him, he knew he had awakened something far beyond his comprehension. Everything danced in those final moments: betrayal, despair, and a truth that coiled tighter, suffocating him in anticipation. An unfathomable choice lay ahead, but as he stood there, shrouded in the ebb and flow of darkness, one final shadow began to emerge. Its glare sent a shiver through him, and though he strained to see, clarity slipped away. What had he truly unleashed? Who are you? He whispered, confronting the figure that loomed before him. Only the beginning of your end, it taunted, as the shadows twirled like whirlwinds, ready to consume their next prey. And in that moment, Mike realized with growing dread he was not ready for what awaited in the depths beyond the altar. What would he face if he dared go deeper? The figure stepped forward, its shape barely discernible against the shifting shadows. A face appeared, a ghastly mask that seemed to warp and twist, reflecting Mike's greatest fears. It looked like Rachel, yet was all wrong. The essence of her faded face echoed through him, igniting a pain he couldn't comprehend. Do you want to know what lies beneath her? The shadow hissed, its voice sending a cold ripple down his spine. Every secret, every lie, they bubbled beneath the surface, just waiting for you to see. Mike swallowed hard, heart pounding. He steadied himself, desperate for clarity. What happened to her? He shouted, though fear dripped from his voice like poison. Who are you? The shadow arched its back, laughing softly like a distant, haunting memory. I am what lingers in the dark, the keeper of forgotten truths. She has told you only half her story, Mike. The other half is better left untouched. Shut up! He screamed, urgency rising like bile in his throat. You're lying. I want to believe you. But doubt ate at him, gnawing like a rat in the corners of his mind. What if Rachel had been hiding something? An unsettling tangle of paranoia twisted within him, fueled by the darkness that pulsed around them. What do you know? He asked, his tone shaking slightly, betraying his defiance. The shadow grinned, an unsettling blend of joy and cruelty etched into its distorted features. Every moment she spent away from you, the choices she made, the consequences that haunt her. You think you know the woman you love, but she is only a shell, a puppet dancing on strings. Fragments of memory flashed in his mind: her distance when she returned home, the way her laughter had dimmed, the late nights he dismissed as work. His chest tightened. Had there been secrets? Let her go. He demanded, voice resolute even as uncertainty clawed at his resolve. You don't own her. You're mistaken, the shadow murmured smoothly, closing the distance between them. She is mine, and you're too weak to save her. Wouldn't it be easier to give in? To let the darkness envelop you both? Allow me to show you what lies ahead together. No! Mike shouted, blinking back tears. The shadow loomed larger, overpowering. He couldn't breathe, could barely think. It was right, the darkness felt comforting, familiar. The pull of despair swirled like a vortex, threatening to drag him down. Embrace it, embrace her lost self, the shadow urged, its voice thick with temptation. All you have to do is accept the truth. Turn away from the light, and I shall reveal what Rachel truly is. The altar beneath him thumped, a heartbeat of earth shaking with impatience. Shadows writhed around him, eager to consume, to devour. Mike felt the weight of the world crashing down, pressure building like a car engine ready to explode.
Fight it. He gritted through clenched teeth, wiping sweat from his brow.
Images flashed once more, her gentle touch, laughter echoing in the sunlight, the delicate warmth of love.
I know you're still in there, Rachel. I believe in you.
But the shadow only laughed louder, a chilling, chaotic sound that became a chorus of desperate wails.
Why cling to what was? She was never what you believed. Look inside and you'll see nothing but darkness.
With that, a fissure cracked open in the ground beneath his feet, yawning wide like a beast hungry for souls. The clamor sharpened, pressing in on him, squeezing the breath from his lungs.
Choose, Mike.
The shadow roared. Your past or your future. In that moment, his mind raced.
Could he sacrifice everything he held dear to discover the truth? Would learning what lay hidden behind Rachel's gaze save her or destroy them both?
He stood on the precipice, the maw of darkness before him, every heartbeat a countdown. And as the shadows pooled around him, Mike took a step forward, heart pounding with dread. He knew he was about to plunge into a truth that had waited a lifetime to be unveiled.
Was he ready for what awaited him, or was this the moment he lost everything?
The ground trembled, and he could sense it. His choice loomed ahead, and the
darkness was more than eager to reveal its secret. With a deep breath, Mike clenched his fists, willing his heart to still.
The shadows whispered and curled around him, their voices a haunting melody, but he steeled himself, rooting down in the absolute conviction that love could conquer even the darkest of demons. Rachel, he called out into the swirling dark, I'm here.
I won't leave you.
For a moment, silence swept through the chaos, as if the shadows held their breath. Then he saw a flicker of light in Rachel's eyes, and hope surged within him like a tide breaking the shore. He rushed forward, fighting against the tidal wave of darkness that sought to envelop him.
Don't give in. You can fight this.
He shouted, desperation lacing his words. Behind him, Jenkins struggled, still ensnared by the tendrils of shadow, fighting for breath.
Mike, save yourself. Jenkins cried, his voice cracking. But Mike remained steadfast.
As he drew closer to the altar, Rachel's visage took shape amidst the shadows, a haunting blend of beauty and despair. The light in her eyes flickered, almost extinguished by the pull of the darkness surrounding her. Mike, you shouldn't have come, she gasped, her voice echoing through the turmoil.
I had to. I need you to fight.
We'll face this together. He reached out to her, heart racing as he battled against his own fears, the uncertainty that twisted deep in his gut. Then the shadows lunged, tightening around her like a constricting serpent. Rachel's expression shifted, twisting between hope and fear as if she were struggling against a terrible current.
They want to take me, Mike. They say I belong to them. No. You're mine. You are not their puppet.
He screamed back, conviction fueling each word. Suddenly, the altar pulsed, radiating warmth that rose against the chill of despair. The shadows hissed, recoiling as if struck.
Embrace the darkness, they whispered, their tone both eager and mocking. Let go of your love, and we will give you what you seek. But Mike's heart roared, drowning out their insidious chant.
It resonated with the memory of Rachel laughing, the glimmer of their daughter's smile.
I won't stop fighting for you, Rachel.
Remember what we had, remember who you truly are. In response, Rachel's features twisted, flickering with anguish. Mike, her voice trembled, caught between the pull of two worlds.
Breathe. Remember the sun. Remember our life.
He urged, his feet moving forward, shielding her from the shadows casting cold upon her skin. The light from the altar brightened, illuminating the space, creating a barrier that forced the shadows back. The darkness shrieked, their voices rising to a cacophony of rage. As he let the enduring love for her guide him, he stepped closer, determined.
I'll never give up.
I love you, Rachel.
Come back to me. Mike.
She cried out, her voice splitting the noise like a shard of glass.
I can't.
I can't breathe, the darkness, it's too much. But then, with fierce resolve, she raised her hand, reaching for his.
But I want to try. I want to go home with you.
The moment her fingers brushed against his, it was electrifying, a shock that coursed through his entire being. Light flared around them as if the universe itself responded to their resolve. "No!" The shadow shrieked, lunging forward, desperate to reclaim their stolen prize. But together, Mike and Rachel pushed against the encroaching darkness. The altar throbbed with power, the runes glowing with vitality. The shadows thrashed, their forms distorting and twisting in excruciating agony. "You will regret this," they screeched, a final desperate chorus of madness. "We will return." But Mike would not waver. "Not if I have anything to say about it," he yelled, and with each word, the bond of their love illuminated the clearing in waves that repelled the nightmares. With one last surge, Mike and Rachel's energies collided with the darkness, folding it back like a retracting tide. The air exploded with blinding light, as shadows broke and scattered, dissipating into nothingness at their feet. The cries of despair faded into silence. Mike grasped Rachel's hand tightly, relief washing over him as their surroundings shifted. They stood on the altar, surrounded by a comforting warmth, nothing but a tranquil, serene light flowing freely around them. There were no shadows, just the sound of their breaths mingling. "Did we win?" Rachel whispered, tears in her eyes as she took in the glorious light, radiant and pure. "Yes," he breathed back, pulling her close. "We did it, Rachel. We faced the darkness together." In that moment, as they embraced under the soft glow, the shadows seemed to evaporate completely, leaving nothing but tranquility. They weathered the storm, and the bond they had reignited was stronger than ever. Yet beyond their embrace, Mike felt a stirring of awareness. The promise of tomorrow lingered on the horizon, a gradual path to healing amidst the scars left behind. And there, in the stillness, hope blossomed anew. As they returned home hand in hand, they were filled with determination to rebuild their lives, together, one step at a time. Having faced the darkness, they knew they could emerge into light. The air shimmered around them, the past was behind, but the future awaited, brimming with potential. They were moving forward, and that's what counted. And now, before you head off, listen up. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to catch our next exclusive stories that will blow your mind. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. You guys are the backbone of this channel. Only true fans understand how crucial these actions are. Thank you for being here.